No matter how powerful he got, he could never be more than president for life. Saparmurat Niyazov, ruler of the Central Asian plains of Turkmenistan for 21 years, died of a heart attack, aged 66, this morning. Despite the shows of popularity he staged, he leaves in his wake not so much loss, but a vacuum. He was the only political and economic figure amid the dusty poverty of his country, the focus of all ceremony, an unparalleled cult of personality, and an ego in need of constant flattery. At 11 a.m, State TV tersely announced the news. The image is the same, but this time in mourning, not worship. His people called him Türkmenbaşy, father of all Turkmens, but because he told them to, not because he looked after them. The old Soviet Guard in Moscow paid their respects at a monument to Stalin, one leading ultranationalist, also a fan of Saddam Hussein.
Saparmurat Mr. Nyazov governed according to the conditions and desires of all of the people of Turkmenistan. It couldn't be ruled differently.
Or by anyone else. Under the law, the Speaker of Parliament becomes acting president. But Türkmenbaşy was both president and speaker when he died, today leaving the Deputy Prime Minister to fill his shoes. He'll be buried, presumably with the usual pomp, on Sunday, amid vague hopes of a sea change in the politics of this gas-rich republic, where the fractured opposition live only abroad.
The first step of the new government should be to release political prisoners. There are several ex-governments imprisoned there.
Easy talk if you're in Sweden. This despot so eccentric that to outsiders he was often more funny than feared. But reform simply hasn't been an option in Turkmenistan, from where constant reports emerged of Türkmenbaşy's decrees, both surreal and serious. One reported decree renamed the month of April and bread after his mother, Gurbanguly Sultan. He banned young men from having beards because he thought facial hair was linked to Islamic extremism. He stopped people owning more than one cat or dog and prohibited opera, ballet and circuses. Yet more lethally, he's fired some doctors and nurses, replacing them with cheaper conscripts, and closed all hospitals, bar those in the capital, Ashgabat. He's also cut pensions, some as small as £5, to 100,000 people. And for good measure, a book of his musings, the Ruhnama, has been made required reading in all schools.
I want to thank great Türkmenbaşy for giving us this holy book which will help us live in the future.
Protest lost in these vast plains. It's a bit like the surface of the moon, part of which incidentally Türkmenbaşy named after himself, and they hold vast gas deposits. One reason perhaps why Türkmenbaşy never made it onto any axis of evil. Washington's instead ignored his despotism, sending Donald Rumsfeld to court him as they vie with Russia for his favour and resources. Nothing to upset the apple cart, which put an alleged $3 billion in Mr. Nyazov's accounts from gas sales and kept the average person on about $50 a month.
Our information showed that gas, which was the main export earner apart from a little trade in melons and maybe carpets, effectively all that money was managed offshore and put into offshore accounts, which were then used by Türkmenbaşy to fund his kind of lavish sort of personal lifestyle and also his cult of personality.
Too much at stake for the next president, whoever that may be, to get an easy ride. There'd not be much left if they started tearing down statues of Türkmenbaşy, but he also left Turkmenistan little else in his wake, except the certainty that his death brings with it another chapter in the great game for control over Central Asia.